Now let's get serious about dual booting. It's time to actually install or begin the installation process of Windows 8 into our unallocated disk space that we created in an earlier video. Now I've mentioned already in the course in this section on dual booting that you could take your ISO and use the Windows 7 DVD USB tool and burn the ISO onto the USB stick and make it bootable and boot from that, or a USB drive. That's real cool functionality. There's another way to do it, and that is to download the Windows 8 ISO, and when you get that on your machine, then just go to the ISO, the disk image file. And this is a trick that not a lot of people figured out about Windows 7, but it's there and it's pretty cool. Just put a blank DVD into the DVD drive, then go to the actual ISO. It shows up as disk image file here. Right click on it and choose burn disk image. That's all you have to do. You don't have to download third-party software or anything. And it'll take it 15-20 minutes most of the time, and it will create a bootable DVD for you to install Windows 8. Alright, so that's what I have done here. And now what we've got to do, by the way, notice my screen's black. Windows is concerned about activation here because I made a copy of a virtual machine to demo this dual boot for you. And I'm not going to violate anything here. I'm just simply going to show you this, and I'm going to blow this machine away and then go back to my other Windows 7 machine. So don't worry about the dark screen here. So now what I need to do is I've put my bootable DVD with the Windows 8 files in there. I have prepared my hard disk. There's some unallocated disk space out there. I think there's like 20 gigabytes for me to install this into. And it will take care of setting up the boot choices and all of that. Now the next step I have to be concerned with, and I know dual booting sounds like, 187,000 easy steps, but it's really not that bad, and it's a really great way to put Windows 8 like on a laptop or a desktop and still be able to get back to your Windows 7 stuff and get comfortable again, and then come back and kind of ease through the transition from Windows 7 to 8. Now if I restart the machine right now, I have to make sure that the machine will look at that DVD as a possible boot source, and my machine is not. And so what I'll have to do is, you'll see it, the screen size is going to change a little. Don't let that bother you. And what I'm going to do is hit the escape key on my machine. That's how I get into the boot settings or the BIOS settings, and so that's what I'm going to do here. So I will simply just do a shutdown and restart, and then I'm going to watch, and it'll flash up here really quickly. You may have to run this 2 or 3 times on your machine to see how to do it, but it's going to ask me to hit escape, and as soon as I see that, that is what I'm going to do. And so there it is. I hit escape for the boot menu, and then I just arrow down and say take a look at the CD-ROM drive. Now when I hit enter, this thing will start the boot process, and it will look at the CD-ROM, and up in the very upper left corner it's going to say press any key to boot from CD or DVD, and that is what I'm going to do. So I'll press enter, and should see my message here in a second, and as soon as I do, I'll press any key, and that's what I did. And now we should start to see Windows 8 boot files start to load, and this feels very funky the first couple of times you do it. And again, let me stress, beat this dead horse one more time, you should not be doing this if you don't have a good recent full backup of your Windows 7 machine. Okay, and I talked about how to get that system image of it in an earlier video as well. And so now what we're going to do here is just kind of sit through this painful process of watching this thing begin to install. And by the way, this is part 1 of part 2, maybe even part 3. We'll see how it goes. But I want you to see this process. This is something you need to really kind of get comfortable with, because in this instance I am dual booting in a virtual environment, which is kind of another level. But I wanted you to be able to see how to dual boot. Anytime I get a new operating system, I do a dual boot. That way I can get back to my old one. I can switch over very easy. And so as you can see here, Windows 8 looks like a regular install, right? So I will click next down here, and we'll take all that, and notice it's saying install it now. So I say OK, and setup starts, and it's going to copy some files over, and it's going to look around at a few things, And I'll just let this run, and we'll talk about it and watch it happen, and then I'll stop the video in just a few minutes, and then we'll move on to part 2. Now it's going to ask me for a product key to activate, and I will actually stop right here, and then I'll join you in part 2. I'll put in the product key, then I'll join you in part 2.